Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, November 20th, 2023 Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. Thank you, everybody. All my members for being here. You have a forum. Appreciate you all making the time this busy week. I do not believe there are any changes or additions to the agenda as it was posted. Yes? We have received Jim's meeting notes. We have a chance to take a look at them. Everybody in agreement? Can I have a motion, please? To accept them?
Move to accept the notes.
And Craig, second. Edna, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? You have in draft form the November 6th minutes. Any changes or corrections to be made? Hearing none, may I have a motion to accept them? So moved. Was that Sharon?
Second.
Second, Sean, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. I have no correspondence, but you do have in your packet, the second page is the proposed planning board schedule of meetings for 2024. You would like that approved this evening, I presume. Are there any that bump up against election days or anything that you usually get tripped up on?
I think we'll be okay.
Okay. So, starting right off, so as you can see, because January 1st is a Monday, very first one up will change the schedule. All right. If anyone doesn't see any problems, could I have a motion to accept the schedule as needed? So moved. Thank you, Sharon.
Second.
Second, Elise. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you very much. Of course, the need arises later in the year, we'll just change the schedule at that time. So the first new application for this evening is David Isakri. Did I say that right?
You did.
Wonderful. 443 Wittenberg Road, site plan and special use permit for the construction of the porch. Would you like to come to the microphone and share with us what you'd like to do?
Can you put a set of plans up on the screen? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lloyd Huber. I am David Pusicuri's architect for this project. This 443 Wittenberg Road is a 3-acre parcel of land. You can see the existing house. In the center there is around 1,950 square feet. We are currently we have 3 accessory use structures. We have a barn, which is under 1,100 square feet, and we have a shed, which is 110 square feet, and a pool house studio on the top right, which is 287 square feet. We're proposing an additional unenclosed porch structure, which you can see on the right there. The dimensions of the structure are 17 by 21. Height is around 10 feet or so. If you scroll forward a few pages, you can see what it looks like in the plan. One more page. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so that's the proposed structure. As you can see, it doesn't really have any walls. There's two columns on the west side. There's a column on the east side. Those linear elements that you see are cross-laminated timber panels, which we're using to support the roof. It's essentially a completely open structure that will be sided where the walls are in a 3rd Scots pine. The decking is also 3rd Scots pine. The landscape is relatively sort of gentle in the roof line, which you can see in the elevation. Next slide, please. Sort of mimics what's happening in the landscape. So from the road, the structure is designed to essentially disappear. So because it's mostly open, we're hoping that the visibility from the street will be quite limited. And like I said, that the structure will mostly disappear in the landscape. Since there are already 3 accessory use structures, we're hoping that the board grants us a special use permit for 1 additional accessory use structure.
Jim?
Okay, so we are on Wardenburg Road, which everyone knows is very historic, but this property itself is not a historic property. I did take a look at this. I don't have a ton of concerns. They are going to need ZBA approval for 350 square feet over the 1,500 square feet aggregate maximum you can have for accessory structures. So we'll require that approval. I didn't see any details on lighting or landscaping for this.
There's
If there's any plan.
There's not going to be any.
Okay. And then we did receive, pictures.
Yeah.
So this is an aerial, just kind of showing the property. The house is here, the porch will be back in here. So
Yeah.
we saw some pictures in the pre-con. If you're coming down the road here where the trees are and the house and the barn, you can't really see it. It is pretty obscured. If you're over here at the intersection, you would be able to see the structure, kind of toward the back of the house, but it is pretty far back. And slightly visible. We had asked for some additional pictures, essentially from this location, just to see what it would be like if it was rendered. I don't think we saw those, but again, it is pretty far back from the road. So I don't really have any issues other than, the ZBA and potential visibility issues if anyone else has.
Is it scheduled for the ZBA?
Yes. But that has become a little bit of an issue because the termination letter expired with the application. So we're working with Brian, get a new letter, and so this might change slightly depending on what
So how does that affect the possibility of a public hearing on December 18th?
I think it would be fine. The changes would have to be minimal. So they would just submit like if they
But
did
they're not
a
likely to
foot
be
or-
through the ZBA, but
It won't be. But if you wanted, you could schedule a public hearing and then continue it, or schedule it 2 months out and then continue it if you need to.
do we know what the December 18th meeting agenda looks like?
No, but it looks like it's gonna have everything from tonight on it, so.
Do you have any thoughts or details on what's going on in terms of potential changes or how you're going to file? Because I think that will play a little bit in this discussion.
Sure, if you want to go back to the elevations, I can walk you through it. Maybe hold there. So, so this is the west.
I have a laser pointer for.
Oh, that's amazing. I was thinking about creating one.
It's second button there. It's a little right there.
So fun, thank you. So, so this is the west elevation. What we're proposing to do so again, as I mentioned, so it's designed as a classic local shed. So that's why you've got the pitched roof. That's why it's mostly open. It's really meant to be part of the landscape. We know that the road is historic and the overall elements are meant to sort of fit within the environment. And so to that point, this surface here, so that's the Thermy Scots pine. Thermy Scots pine is a treated wood that weathers to gray. So that should also match a lot of the characters in the neighborhood. This area here, we're thinking about potentially, and this is what I've already submitted to the ZBA for review, is to have this be basically a screen, a planted screen. So it'd be a wood lattice type structure that we can put some local vegetation onto. That'll be some privacy type screen. It wouldn't really change the geometry of the architecture too much. It would essentially help it blend a little bit more, but it would be an architectural change that seems like would be required. Then the other section, if you go to the next slide. Go to the next slide.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, so this is the back elevation. So here we're proposing a similar, this is towards the other property that the client also owns. So here too, we're proposing a lattice privacy shade screen that's going to be built out of the same Thermy Scots pine. And then the one additional change we're proposing is a wood trellis, which will be back here. That's a 3 foot by 13 foot wood trellis, which is basically just a shading device. So slight cosmetic tweaks, but nothing substantially really changed.
So you wouldn't be changing the general design of this, you won't be changing the 350 square foot request from the ZBA, well, you might be also.
Yeah, the
But
roof,
substantially, this is what it is, you're going to make some tweaks to it, and possibly some additions.
yeah,
It's not moving it anywhere on the site. I think
no.
we can see it's changing.
Before we set the date, are the planning board members have questions?
What is the planned use?
Take it.
What is the planned use?
It's there's a pool in the front here. Yeah, right there. It's a pool, and so it's just a porch. So they're gonna have, you know, a lounge chair. Probably, you know, maybe some yoga up there from time to time, sit and enjoy the views. It's there's some slope to the property, so they have pretty beautiful views towards the west. It's just a porch. But we have cover for sun protection and for rain protection. Yeah. So it's essentially tucked behind, it's right there.
Right. And the lattice and the screens, they're part of the structure, they're not separate fences.
No, there'll be, so these cross laminate timber panels here and here. So the lattice that we're proposing is here and in the back, and it's just an open lattice. It's built out of 1x3, we'll put some plants on it, so it'll help shade the property and just will blend into the landscape. It's part of the existing structures between the existing walls.
What's the roof material?
It's also cross-laminated timber, and
Okay.
the actual roofing material is standing on the seam.
Okay. Is there any kind of water collection, gutter, or anything like that, or does this just run off into the?
No, it runs off. There's an existing perforated drain here that's already there. We're going to put in this, probably some kind of a very minor swale, but if it's required, the pitch is this direction, and so it just naturally drains. It's surprising, the drainage is really good on site.
If you're gonna do a swale, I would have to show them plans.
Yeah, we don't know yet. It just depends on how the water ends up running.
You have to determine
Have to
that
determine it now.
in advance as part of the review process. That would have to be on the plan, so you show the grading changes, if you were going to do that, versus just let it run off the roof as is. Or come back before the planning board for grading plans. But I'd recommend considering it now. Essentially, everything you're going to do on the site has to be shown on the plans, so that someone can look at it and see exactly what's going on, and what changes are going to be.
I think we'll probably just let it, there's an existing rock, it's a little ledge, as you can see, sort of runs, the pitch is already running this direction. The reason why I'm hesitating is I'm not really sure whether it's going to be required. We want to keep everything as natural as possible. Drainage is really good on site, there's no intention for a gutter at the moment. It's like, if it doesn't work the way I think it will work, then the option is to put in a swale, which we put in afterwards, but it's, you know, it's like a 6-inch curve basically. But I don't think we'll need it. So that's why I'm hesitating.
You can hesitate.
Hmm?
You can hesitate, but if you decide in the future that it's needed, you'll have to come back.
Of course, yeah, I just hope we don't have to put it in. I don't think we will.
Hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
Anybody else? So we have a choice of going with the 18th of December or going into January. Any preferences for
If
anybody?
they're on December with ZBA, they wouldn't be done until at least February.
Right.
Then
At this point, we're like a minimum of 3 months. So the earliest that the planning board could take official action, waiting for the ZBA, would be the second February meeting. If everything were going to ZBA in December.
And ZBA is the next day in February, so.
I don't see any point to go to December or January. Really?
That's,
Yeah. So when will we be scheduling it for?
Public hearing, January, well, it would be January, no, we do the 20th, sorry, February 20th.
February 20th?
For,
To come back before us to hopefully conclude the public hearing. Open and conclude, you know, if there's no problem. We can't approve it until we've been through the zoning process.
got it, okay. And that would be when?
The earliest we could give an approval would be February
20th,
20th.
it's a Tuesday.
It's a minimum 3-month process with the ZBA.
I heard.
So that
Um,
gives you additional time to think about your swale.
No, the design's good there, it's just you always plan for the worst case scenario, so I think it'll work fine, but as I said, if it's required on site, we'll certainly.
Well, the
choose.
other option, you know, is to get the swale approved and then not do it.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just-
I don't want to do that.
No, I'm giving you the option. If you're wrong, I'm proud of your certainty. But if you're wrong and you have to come back, you understand the delay.
I do.
Okay.
So next step is ZBA,
Mhm,
that's 2 to 3 months,
mhm.
and then we'll see you guys back on February,
Okay.
hopefully for final approval.
And just stay in touch with Gretchen about any changes or upgrades to your plans.
Okay. Great.
So we have a
Resolution.
procedural resolution.
The procedural resolution from the board's consideration for site plan special use permit for David Pisacreta, 443 Wurtemberg Road in the RC5 zoning district, accepting the application, supporting documents as adequate for further review, classifying the action as type 2 under seeker, scheduling a public hearing for February 20th at 6:15. We will send this to the CAB for review, we will send it to Dutchess County Planning, and we need 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
Who would like to go?
I'll go.
Please, who'd like to go with this?
You know.
Sharon. So, may I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution? Thank you, Sean, second.
Second.
Thank you, Craig, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Someone will be in touch with you to schedule a site visit, probably before you get too cold.
Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second up this evening under new applications is Central Forest, Mount Lebanon Road, site plan and wetlands permit to construct gardens. How are you?
Good evening, everyone.
How are you?
So the Board of Trustees wanted to replace some old split rail fencing that was up on east side of our gate where many moons ago, kids would drive around our gate through the wetland. That didn't prove to be permanent, and even the recent parking lot reserve that we built had a couple of pieces of split rail fencing to try and guide people how to park, and they're broken already. So the trustees would like to put in guardrails along the wetlands so that no one can get into the marsh or around our gate, and it organizes parking for us. We had 72 cars at the forest yesterday for a Fats and the Cats potluck rally, and they were organized. They go in the parking lot, they didn't know where to go. So this will be 8-foot wide parking spaces designated. Both the guardrails in both lots will run north and south parallel to Mount Ruxton Road so that we can plow the lots without messing with the guardrails. And in fact, I think a lot of the damage to the split rail fences was done in plowing, I think. So that's the project, and if you have any questions, I'll answer them if I can.
All right, I'll let Jim begin with his comments.
Okay, just a couple. I think when we talked before, we just asked if you had like a representative image of what you thought these would look like.
I did
You know-
submit one, yes.
Did you say, okay, maybe I just missed that.
Yep.
So we'll look through that again. And then we had discussed putting some dimensions on the plans to show kind of where it would be from the edge of the existing, rock parking areas at night, just so that when the inspector goes out to look and see where these are, they have some type of reference point, to understand where.
Well, they're basically filling the whole lot. You can't go any further. I mean, you can see it's centered on each of the parking lots, and that's not to scale. But if you pace it off or measure it, what we designed is the maximum, the maximum we could do. Obviously, we want to get the maximum amount of parking spaces.
I guess my question is this is a representation of the guide rail, and would it be at the end of the parking area itself? Like, this is showing the end of
approximately, it's a wooded
Right.
area, and it's not precise like a building, it's not a wall. And where do you measure from? It could be, what, a tree? I don't know. I wouldn't know how to do
I
that.
thought it was stone laid down, but, so we talked about that.
Well, there's stone in the new parking lot, there's nothing in the metal parking lot that's been there forever.
So that was really my only question. What's that?
Was this somebody's, did we talk about the plan? Whose
Yeah,
plan
it was,
is this?
Well, I drew it, but Stefan approved it, said it was
I
accurate.
see.
Thing right now, because we talked about that, so that was covered.
He was the architect that did the expansion and made that drawing.
Yeah, I recall, and he can't give you dimensions or anything?
Well, the dimensions are on it, of the length of the feet, that's 80 feet, you can see it's all marked. 80 feet, 78 feet, or whatever it is. All the dimensions are there.
So that was one comment. I don't know if it's that important. Obviously, it's to keep cars from going into the wetland areas and off into the woods, which, was my last comment here, that, I believe that the minimal disturbance of the poles being put in the ground, outweighs the protection of the wetland buffer and the woodlands. It'll be protected to keep cars from going into that area. And that the reason for the wetland permit is that we do know there is a federal wetland here. Didn't require a delineation because we know the wetland's there, we know it's in the wetland, and the permit's coming in for that. Again, we're just talking about poles in the ground too, we're not talking about a structure or something else more significant. So I think those are all reasonable expectations of what you're showing on the plan. So I think like I said, a couple poles in the ground far outweighs damage put down by cars. They're not.
Planning board members?
When you say guardrail, are we metal?
Guardrail 6x6 with a 2x3,
Wood?
no, a 4x3 rail, one rail.
So
Like I
wood,
said,
If it treated wood or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's all pressure treated.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. I think guardrail, I think metal and shiny.
Yeah, I was going to ask the
No,
same,
no.
if it was the galvanized.
No, we don't want that in the
So
floor.
it's replacing on a split rail fence.
Mhm.
What's the approximate height going to be? Is it going to be a
About
bump?
3 feet.
3 feet, okay.
Yeah.
And it's just a one
One rail.
rail across,
Yeah.
not a top rail, mid rail?
Right, it's going to be just a little down, the tops will be angled,
Okay.
pretty much the way you see a wood guardrail. They're pretty common.
And these will be, the 6x6 will be post driven?
Right, oak wood fencing is going to put them right into the ground, yeah.
I didn't see a copy of the picture. If you could just resend the picture,
Absolutely.
we can put up at the next discussion we have.
I have,
I think over here.
can you hold a second?
I just don't see them.
You plan on kind of painting I guess, you mentioned it'll help identify parking spots. Can you imagine like identifying that on the actual guardrail?
No, what we're going to do is put a big P on the middle of them to designate. I'm not going to number them.
Right.
I don't want to pull out numbers or anything. But there's going to be one of the trustees who happens to own Stage 1 Auto wanted to put the headlights of a car there. I thought that was kind of neat. Let me see if I have that picture.
If you number them, you can offer, parking at a fee maybe. Reserve parking.
Anyone else have any more questions for Nick's looking?
No, that's another permit. No, I don't have it. I will email that to them.
Just, it would be good to have in file for them to
Yep.
see exactly what's going into this.
If there's no other questions, we have a draft procedural resolution.
Yes. Draft procedure resolution for the board's consideration for a site plan amendment and wetlands permit for Franklin Forest with installation of 7 guardrails totaling approximately 476 linear feet at 68 Mount Rushmore Road, accepting the application supporting documents as adequate for further review, classifying the proposed actions as listed for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. We'll schedule a public hearing for December
December 18th.
December 18th. We'll send this to the CAB for review. We'll send it to the Waterfront Advisory Committee for review because it is within the LWRP area, Dutchess County Planning, and we need to designate 2 planning board members for a second.
Sean? Craig? All right. May I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Drove while I was on my way here on the bike, and so I had lights on.
Next up on the agenda this evening is 12468 Port Natal, 473 to 475 Mill Road. Mr. Natal is not in the country and has asked to have this moved to the December 4th. I need a motion.
Motion.
No? Do I need a motion?
No, we haven't accepted
No
it.
action.
Okay. Then we go ahead. First public hearing for this evening. This will be the Feldman 22 Salisbury Turnpike site plan, special use permit and wetland permit. I believe some new information has come in, which I don't believe any of us have had a chance to really look at, but would you like to share some additional information with us?
Could you have it on the screen?
Yeah, so the last meeting, I was asked to draw in the proposed new split location. And Greg and Jerry came by and described everything. And the unit out there around the back. And then where the pipes will go, will be painted the color of the barn. Upstairs, downstairs, and then on the back of the barn, above the windows. So that was one of the changes. And then the other thing we changed was we're keeping the original doors on the barn all around. So everywhere is original, except for, you see up in the storage area here, behind this shed door, if you open it, it will be a permanent window that won't be able to open and close, because that's the light well area. So that I get light downstairs. And then the original doors here are going to be made into sliding doors. So you have this. That was already on the plan. But then what was behind those doors was the question. And originally I was going to do like a divided light door thing, but that got too complicated and too expensive. So we're just going to do like a garage door, but it looks like a carriage house door. And I provided a picture. I can show you. It's just wood clad. You can see it. It's wood clad though, but it will be behind the sliding door, so that will barely ever be open. It's only, we have to keep the mice out and we have to keep it, keyed in. I have glazes and clay that cannot freeze, and we just want to keep the mice out. We don't have an attic or a basement or a shed or a garage in our house, so this is our only storage for anything. And we have a big mice problem, so we just want to make sure that we keep them out.
So the plans up on the screen are new as of today, showing some of the changes that have taken place. We'd asked for those at the last public meeting. The one thing I did notice since the last public meeting is that these plan sheets aren't stamped or signed by anyone. They are just elevations. I'm not sure if that necessarily matters. This one is.
That was the only thing that needed the
Stamp and signature. Yeah, from the art. So, there are some other details in here, but I just wanted to raise it now just in case you do get the building department and they say these need to be stamped and signed. But the structural one appears to be down here, so that may not be an issue. I think we might be okay there. And then we did get a letter from CAB, but that was not based on the current plans, it was based on the stuff we reviewed previously. What's up here right now, right?
It was based on my visit to the site, which was a week ago. Okay.
The difference, Jim, the difference is the door, right? This door.
The door, and we now see where the, we now see the location of the,
So, right here, you want to back up one? Yeah, so we were just adding an overhead door in here. And then you can see from the inside, or that'll be what the outside looks like. When you open the door, you know, like this, it will be behind it. And again, we're not planning to use that front door very much. We just, like, we need to get a big thing out. We need to be able to open it up all the way. And that was kind of like the easiest solution that will still look historic and good. We can paint it, we're not painting it depending on what we decide.
primary reason we asked for some of these additional details, like the HVAC units, was for HAPAC review, looking at the, their input on this, because it is a historic barn. And again, we just
And they did have a meeting this week and didn't have the information, so have been unable to comment, but did express some interest in being able to see the details of the installation. So, given the combination of factors that we've just gotten this new information today, and the fact that HAPAC hasn't been able to make a site visit, I will ask the folks who made a site visit to report, but I am going to ask that this be continued to December 18th, so that we have a chance to look at this at HAPAC in particular. But that being said, who did the site visit?
I did, and I was there both for the planning board and for the CAB, so I'll start with the CAB
Sure.
observations. And I know that one of the things that you brought up was that you do want to keep those historic doors in the front, and they are going to be closed almost all of the time, but they fit so loosely within the opening that there's the prospect of critters getting in under there. So the more refined and tight-fitting garage door acts as a barrier for that
Correct.
practical purpose. And the property contains a house listed as historic by the town of Rhinebeck. And the applicant is proposing changing the small barn on the property to a pottery studio and adjacent storage. The property is outside of the LWRP. The property does contain wetlands that form some of the headwaters of the Langston's Kill, but the southwest corner of the barn is approximately 95 feet to the northeast of the wetlands, and none of the proposed work will take place inside the wetlands buffer. So it's just kind of the corner of the building is caught in there. And the property is listed as local resource number 329, the Schaefer-Fairchild property, and it is in the comprehensive plan. And only one resource is noted, presumably it's the house and not the barn. And I think that could be one of the issues at hand. And also, the changes that are being proposed are consistent with a rehabilitation. So it is changing from use as an agricultural building for keeping animals, keeping feed, wagons, tools, that sort of thing, to an active pottery studio. And I introduced the Secretary of the Interior standards to the applicant, and I believe that the changes that are being proposed are consistent with what would be a rehabilitation. So a change in use while preserving the character-defining features of the building. And the location of the condenser is within the area that's part of the 100-year historic floodplain. So that would be something to consider, that you should maybe put in some sort of an elevating, they make these platforms for them, or possibly something that's building mounted. I'm not sure what would work best for your purposes, but kind of stay away from the ground.
Put it a foot high. but we can modify it if
On the new plan
necessary.
came in today. Okay.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with the process, and I didn't see anywhere exactly when those plans needed to be in before the meeting, we just said before the meeting, so I apologize for that.
Got anything you wanted to add?
No, well, I mean, it's an old barn, but it's in great shape. It's been well cared for, and the changes are not really going to change the visual. I mean, you'll have the planting for the mini splits on the outside, but that's something that can always be removed.
And did you indicate that you were or you were not going to paint lighting?
Also, this side of the barn, right here, there's a huge rock outcropping that goes like that. You can't see from the road. It covers the whole road like that. From that side, and there's a fence on the next door's property, so that you have to be right on it to even see this piece here.
And also the siding on that side of the barn appears to be replacement siding. I mean, it was replaced in kind. It seems to be pine clapboard that's painted, but it looks fairly,
Not original.
Fairly
Because
recent, yeah,
because of the rock outcropping, there was probably a lot of moisture on the side of the barn. So they've replaced, pretty much all of it. The other sides of the barn, there's a lot of original. But you have to go in and replace.
Other planning board questions, comments? Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to comment on this application? All right, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing until December 18th. So moved. Second, please. All those in favor? Aye.
this is, the purpose in continuing this and not hearing it
Is to allow
tonight
HAPAC
is to allow HAPAC to, what are they going to contribute to this? Because they've been silent on a lot of applications recently. And I feel like for this historic resource, I don't think the barn really plays a role in that historic property, because there's only one property that's listed. So I would suggest that we can hash this out tonight.
The only reason I bring it up is because we were in, they had their meeting and indicated that it had not been referred to them, that they had not received the referral, and thus had no opportunity to comment. Now, I don't know if you have that information or can tell us. Your point is well taken, if they received the referral and failed to act. But I would like to know that we did our due diligence by making the referral. So,
Okay.
um,
Was that a failing on my part in putting together the site visit, or?
no,
Okay.
no, they would have gotten.
Because they weren't on the distribution for that.
They would have, they should have gotten the specific referral.
Okay.
And I don't have
That was sent to them October 20th,
okay.
October 20th.
Well, in that case,
over the 30th.
if there's a change in opinion on the part of the planning board members who are here this evening, now that we have that information, I'm perfectly happy to entertain that. I just wanted, now that Gretchen has confirmed that it will go to them, your point is well taken.
Okay.
I agree with Greg. I support that.
Those, Sharon, you made the site visit, are you?
Yeah, no, I agree with, Greg did a good report on the historical part of it, so I think we're good.
All right.
But actually, it's the only place you can put the outdoor unit, and that's how you hook them up. It was removable and it became necessary.
I'm sorry,
It's removable if it became necessary.
everything that is being proposed is reversible.
Yeah.
There's the changes that are being made to the window openings, putting windows where there were just hatches. The hatch doors are staying in place and they can remain closed or, be in an open position, if the windows were to go away. So yeah, that's a very good point. Reversible changes that are consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for a rehabilitation, which I think this is a good example of that.
Okay. Then, I think I have asked, have I not asked if there's anybody here from the public? I think I did do that. So then may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Jim, you have a draft approval resolution.
Draft approval resolution for the board's consideration tonight for Serena Feldman for site plan, special use permit, wetlands permit for renovations and modifications to the barn at 22 Southbury Turnpike within the RC5, reaffirming the actions type 2 under secret for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Based upon submitted information, including reports from planning board members on their site visit, finds the proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. With respect to the application for wetlands permit, you find that the proposed work and intended use is consistent with the general standards for wetlands permits set forth in Chapter 120, and would grant the requested waiver permit conditioned upon site plan approval. With respect to the application for special use permit, finding the work and intended use consistent with the general standards for special use permits, and consistent with Chapter 125, and granting the requested special use permit conditioned upon site plan approval. And then with respect to the application for site plan approval, finding the work and intended use to be consistent with Town Code Chapter 125, and approving the application inclusive of the plans by Caleb Killian dated May 2nd, actually that's going to be a different date, that'll be whatever the date is, the plans on the screen. So I will revise that. With the date that's on the plans on the screen. And then authorizing the chair to stamp and sign the above cited plan on the satisfaction of the three conditions listed below.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Second? Second. I'll call forward Sharon. Michael?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Edna? Aye. Frank?
Aye.
Louise? Aye. And I vote aye. Good luck. Next up this evening on the agenda is Rhinebeck Hotel Corky, 4 Grinnell Street. We have received a request from the applicant to continue this public hearing until January 16th. It is, however, a public hearing. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to comment on this application? If not, may I have a motion to continue the public hearing? Second? Second? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next up this evening is wireless type Verizon, 3866 Route 9G, site plan and special use permit for a sales point. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Robert Gorioso, law firm Snyder & Snyder, on behalf of the applicants, Wireless Edge and Verizon Wireless. We were last here, I believe, in August, and at that time, we were discussing some alternatives. We've been working with Verizon Wireless and their engineering team to try and look at the alternatives, including possible reduction in height. We're still working on that, as well as the response to Mr. Graves' engineering comments. So we appreciate your patience, but we want to make sure we evaluate everything properly and come back to you with what the engineers believe is appropriate. I do have with me this evening Mr. John Arthur, who's the president and owner of Wireless Edge. He'd like to say a few things and go over a few items with you, if that's all right. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. John Arthur with Wireless Edge. We wanted to talk about a few things tonight, design-wise. I know there's some concerns about the height of the tower, the design being a tree, the type of tree. So I wanted to discuss just a few options and kind of get your feel for it. We also have a couple of possible alternate locations we want to discuss. And so again, we just want to really get your feel so that we can kind of go back and prepare maybe an amended application. So as Rob mentioned, we're working with Verizon to try to reduce the height. It's not an easy task because the wireless carriers want to get as much bang out of the buck as possible. They want to get as much coverage area out of the site. They're trying to cover a very large coverage hole, which goes all the way to the Kingston Bridge, all the way to Route 9. and then, north and south of 98. But we're making a case to them that they can reduce the height by 20 feet. So their antennas are currently located at 146 feet. The original pole we proposed is 150 feet, and there's a little topping section, and that's to get a taper above their antennas for the tree branching. So if they were to lower from 146 down to 126, then everything drops down by 20 feet. And some of the views, if you look at a view like this, that will reduce the height so that it is below the wires we looked at in that vantage point. So, for example, the width of the pole right about there is about 12 feet. So 20 feet difference is right about there. So that's pretty significant, in our opinion, visibility. So that's really the first thing. The second thing is that we probably discussed this last time is working with the owner on the landscaping. So it's our plan to plant arborvitaes along the road, pretty large ones that grow up tall, and that will obscure the driveway in and any views of the ground equipment, which is set back pretty far anyway from the road, so we're not really going to see that in the angle of the terrain. But it will provide a nice landscaping along the entire front, except for a few rocky areas, all the way almost up to the intersection of 199. So that's the first thing. The second thing I wanted to discuss was the type of branching on the tree. So I have a little show and tell for you. I have some branch samples I wanted to show you. Now, I'm not going to pretend that all these are appropriate for the area. I did not bring the pine tree, or the palm tree rather, so we know that one's out. Unless you want it. I'll pass this around. So this is a branch for a typical cell tower pine tree. This particular manufacturer is probably, we like it because it's kind of a fluffy branch style, and the branching material is not just simply fiberglass tube, it's actually coated to look like a branch. And the leaves are about twice the length of a typical cell tower tree that you see, like the one on the Hutchins Parkway or others that we've seen in Norfolk. I'll pass that over. And we built this tree, which is actually represented in this photo simulation in Wappingers on town property. So this is an actual view of the tree. So the second type of branching is regular leaves. This is a small deciduous tree. This one represents something that's close to maybe a small elm or a eucalyptus tree. And this is a fairly new design that can be manufactured. The downside is in the winter, those branches do not fall off the tree. So, but it might have a better look.
How do they layer the angle to make it, is it all based on direction?
No, so this is just kind of a sample board, so it's actually 360 degrees around the branch. And what happens is the main stem of the monopole has inserts, so they have larger branches that go in, and those branches have sub-branches that go out. And they even have branches that will kind of wrap around in front of the antennas to obscure the antennas. And the antennas also have covers that you put over them, which have the same material in the antennas as well. So this is a large leaf, very similar to an elm.
Do these have any adverse impact on the signal strength?
They do not. They're all RF transparent.
Completely for all frequencies? Or
For all frequencies. And they've done, these manufacturers have done testing to certify that, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to sell them to the industry. And that branch, by the way, is probably what I would consider, I think that's the best of the bunch. I think the other one is too small. And these other branches I'll show you are...
they change color in the hole?
If I could figure out how to do that, that wouldn't happen. We'd do another thing. So these are two branches, they're very similar. This is more like a long leaf, almost like a eucalyptus tree. And that comes in two shades.
Now, if one of your RF transmitters gets, powerful wind and it gets dislodged, I'm sure that will get fixed immediately. If one of these branches becomes dislodged, displaced, or falls off, if there's some sort of damage, what's the maintenance program for? Some of these that you see on I-87 headed down toward Jersey, some of them look pretty shabby
Oh, I've got photos of a lot of those.
over time.
Just for
So
fun.
how do we know that it's going to be well maintained over time?
Right, so some of the problems that you see there, there are different levels. There's light density all the way up to there's light, medium, and then high density. So these are all high density designs, and that's why we like this particular manufacturer. It does make maintenance installation of the tower more difficult. It's a more intense process. It requires you to get up there with a man lift and do the services as opposed to having technicians climb the hole. There's not a lot of open area involved. A lot of those towers were designed by carriers at just minimum cost, so they still have minimum branching. I've seen some that look like just a bunch of sticks with other branches. The other problem is that sometimes the carriers will go up and leave a section of branches, they'll put their antennas and they'll leave the branches on the ground. So that's kind of a problem, and that's something that's really up to us to monitor their installations, to make sure that they're installing around the branches. If they have to trim, they have to do it properly, and we have to make sure that the antennas are all covered, and also properly painted as well. Because painting the antennas within the branch envelope is very important.
Are these made from polyethylene plastic?
I'm not particularly sure what these are made from. Might be polypropylene.
Okay. Do they have a service life?
I would say that all plastics will experience some fading in the sun, and probably 10 years, you might see fade in the branches, and then we have to make a decision on if it's enough to replace. But our goal would be to maintain that look. And also, the branches can get damaged in a storm, just like any tree branch, and they need to be replaced. So when you manage a tree tower like this, there's a lot of vigilance in inspecting and maintaining it, making sure that the carrier installations are done properly.
And also to your point, Craig, another thing that the board could consider would be to make the special permit renewable after certain periods, and that may be a way, just it allows you to sort of check in with the operator of the tower, and issues regarding maintenance and things like that can be raised at that time. We've done that in other situations.
I was just looking, I think there's something in the code, I was looking for that exact reference, but if not, you can certainly add that in.
I have a question for Mr. Arthur, if I may. Do you have photographs of these various alternatives in instances where they've been deployed?
I do. Some of them I don't have really good examples because this may be a lower tower. So some like this might be from sites in California, and it's only a 30 or 60 foot tree. Some of the tree designs don't go straight up; they go up and they branch out, and those are a little tricky to deal with for multiple carriers, particularly in this market. And they don't really look very well at higher elevations.
Understood. Well, if the board members, you may want to consider asking for photographs. Just, I think it's very helpful to be able to see the samples that were brought in and to see what options are available, sort of to take that a step further. You may want to see the photographs so you can see just what these, some of the differences between some of these samples are pretty significant, and it might be useful to you to see what those differences look like in situations where they've actually been deployed.
And if anybody is down in Washington and wants to see pine tree or monopine live, I can give the address of the location down there. It's 30 Soccer Field Drive off of Regency Drive. inches off all inches of the road. And it's a public park back there, and that tower that you see in that simulation is back there. And that particular one is about 130 feet, 135 feet. So it's pretty close to what we're talking about with the reduced height that we're proposing.
Is that on a scenic road?
No, it's just in a neighborhood.
Do you have
It happens to
any
be-
non-tree alternatives to show us?
What's that?
Do you have any non-tree alternatives?
So that gets a little bit to kind of my next discussion, which is location.
Can I just,
This location
before
is
you
where-
go off that, I myself would like to see photographs of these in situ. I don't know about other plans.
Is the background on the website?
I can guide, so the website, rftransparent.com, is the manufacturer we like. They're the ones who fabricated these particular branches.
I'm assuming you probably pull photos from there.
Oh, yeah, I have photos from the manufacturer
Okay,
too, so
yeah.
I can send them in. And then if you like a particular style branch, like, let's say you could say, well, show me the large elm leaf. We can then take this and simulate that with that leaf pattern. So we'll just take those photographs and we'll utilize it in the simulations.
Michael, because I consider you the expert on this, which of these types of trees would you consider to be local?
They're somewhat generic in terms of their design. And also the question I guess I have with the idea here is to create a tree to look as a natural part of the environment. I mean, with the exception of the pine, none of these leaves are going to be on any trees around here in January. So for December, January, February, March, April, when things start leafing out, you're going to have something up there which doesn't look anything like something that belongs in this environment around here.
And that's why they
It's
go
the
with
purpose.
pine trees, in this area.
I mean, I don't, but frankly, find any of these terribly attractive. And I'm
That's
sure
why I
that's
asked
surprised.
whether there might be some non-tree
Well, that's
alternatives.
it. I mean, this is an industrial use, and sometimes, we have poles out here with wires on and things like that. We have substations, and they look like substations, and some things, if we're going to have certain uses in this country, the different type of equipment that we have to have for those, I think it's going to have to look like the equipment that we have to have for those, and people have to decide if that's, if the use is important enough to have that. I personally don't necessarily think that industrial design is in and of itself necessarily ugly or unsightly. And I think, frankly, it's more honest approach to this situation, to the community, to say, yeah, you need some cell towers, you want them, we put up the cell towers, but it's going to look like this until maybe down the road we have better systems, things like that, that we don't need them. Rather than try to pretend that, I remember I described that once as looking like a toilet brush, and it really does. It doesn't look like any pine tree I've ever seen in my life. And my own personal preference is I'd rather see an industrial structure look like an industrial structure for the use that it's designed, that it's more honest, it doesn't try to fake people out. I think it's actually better looking in the environment as not a aspect of the environment itself, the natural environment, that it is part of the built environment and necessary for human behavior, what we need. And that's my own personal preference. I have an honest approach to this and know the need is there, rather than try to pretend that it's not what it is. No one's going to believe that it's not some sort of industrial use.
I wholeheartedly agree with that point of view. And if there's some way to streamline that industrial look, that
So
would
be
be
it.
wonderful.
So be it.
So I'd just like to also add that one of the aesthetic concerns is the relative height of this to the surrounding canopy. And if you're talking about 120 feet, that's still, about 60 feet above the existing canopy, maybe 50 some odd feet.
Right, so, right about 50
Yeah.
plus. And the reason is that really, in order for tenders to work, they need to be above the tree line. So the tenders down buried in the trees don't really work. And to show, just as a local example of how just a little bit of terrain and some trees, really hurt your signal, I think everyone would agree that the coverage if you're walking inside tops is pretty bad. I mean, get past the front door, you can't make a phone call.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, you have a cell tower at the fairground, right up the street. It's a
Right.
regular monopole, you just added another 20 feet on the tower.
140 feet tall,
They've
yeah.
got 3 carriers, the bottom one is almost a little bit above the trees. So they're about 40, 50 feet above the tree line at the top. But they have 20-foot separations. I don't know why, but they have 20-foot separations. So even though it looks pretty close, and it's a regular monopole, just that little bit of terrain, and the fact that it's looking through some trees, you can't make a call. And then the building itself prevents you as well. So if you're outside, you might get a bar
So
by the front door.
if we cut down all of our trees and tore down all of our buildings, we'd have really good cell coverage. Right? And I think, as Michael said, there's a balance that we need to consider. And I thought of that as well, that it's one of the places where it's almost impossible to make a phone call, is where you want to call your wife, and are we out of eggs or not? And the fact that that is physically so close to a very tall tower, it signals to me that we're looking to the wrong solutions here. And the disguise of the tower as a tree really only works if you've got some sort of an incline behind
It's
it.
a
where
context situation.
It's going to be, that it's on the side of a hill, and it's looking out from the hillside and it's blending in, then maybe it's a little more believable. But when it's standing there, and this is a scenic road, and there's a lot of open sky there, trying to mask that with really tall arborvitaes, I think is really kind of getting away from the character of this town.
Okay, so all of the folks said I couldn't agree with more. I'm usually arguing that exact same case to yours. So we often propose brown painted monopoles and brown versus galvanized because, and again, some people say I want galvanized because it better stimulates against the sky, but we like the brown because when you're looking at it through trees, the brown without the leaves tends to get lost. You really can't see it when you're looking through any type of trees or wires. So I believe that a brown monopole versus a tree is much more, is less visible than a tree which has bulk year-round.
Did I hear you that you have a couple more points? Because I think
I do.
the point that's been made quite clearly again tonight is we're not terribly inclined to go in this direction and keep asking for cleaner, more real solutions. So I think that's pretty, I'm not going to take a poll, I'm not going to make people vote, but I'm not hearing any dissent from this board in terms of the direction we're asking you to take us in terms of the look of the poll. So I think you had some other things you
I
wanted.
did, and this, I'll give you some of my sensitivities and why we went for a tree. One was the zoning code pushes you in the direction of stealth structure. And 2, the property owner lives just on the other side of those trees. So when he's in his backyard, he sees the trees, and this is going to be sticking up above, and he doesn't really want to look at a regular cell tower. He's the closest one and the most impacted by the visibility of the site. And he requested a tree, because that's what he's going to be looking at every day in his backyard.
Okay,
So that was the sensitivity there.
gotcha.
But any other day of the week, I would say regular brown monopole.
Okay,
I would-
we've got all those facts. Now what else?
So one other thing, so we looked at alternate locations to see what works. And again, a lot of this goes to the, having Verizon be agreeable that it's not going to disrupt our coverage too much. Unfortunately, I don't have enough of these. I have only 6. We had a photocopy list this afternoon, so just ignore that the stuff on the back. It's the same stuff, just repeated.
If you don't have enough, Jim and I can share.
Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate it.
So the location A is the site where we're at right now. And if you go, so I'm showing 3 different locations on the first page. The second page, I showed 2 for the same property. So do you have a look at the map that you saw here for the overall property?
And the B is a little bit closer to the Shell station.
Correct.
What about?
Oh, yeah. Could you move your bus?
Yeah.
pull up one more. An actual photograph here.
I can pull Google Earth, that'd be better.
Pull the photograph.
Google Earth?
Yes,
There,
Earth,
yes.
So while you're pulling that up. So the second location, on the same block, it's closer to the Shell station, to the intersection. There's a little bit of a natural nook in the trees, so there's a lot of trees that are around it. Okay, so the site, the current site is right there, the east site. So the east site is right in this building up here. So what happens is if you were coming down 90 from this direction, it'd be pretty well shielded by these trees until you get really just almost past the site. The ground elevation is about 20 feet difference. So that means that, you know, if you were to say a 130-foot pole is good at the A location, 150-foot poles would need to be compatible. The other downside to this location is that it will meet the setbacks to residences and some of the side yards and the basic building setbacks, but it's too close to the road. It doesn't meet the 250 feet from the road. It's only about 130 feet. So that's going to require a variance for the setback. So you really have to want that location versus the other location as a trade-off because of the variance. So that's that. So the other location that we looked at is by Ruby's. So if you go down, so we have a location that we're looking at right in this corner. So if you would come into the entrance, kind of go around, coming from the main road, go around, and then you kind of skirt around the woods, right to this corner here. Very far setback from the road, lots of trees around there. That's the perfect place for a regular monopole because maybe some far distances you might see a piece of it above the trees, but that's really very deep. The downside is that it's 50 feet, 55 feet lower in elevation than the A site. So because of that, to compensate, that tower would have to be about 200 feet high, which is still doable in a monopole. Once you get above 200 feet, you have to put FAA lighting on there. So that's why you see a lot of tower applications 199 feet. 200 feet will actually technically make that threshold, or meet the threshold. Painted ground, same idea. You probably wouldn't see it back there. Driving by, you definitely wouldn't see it. Maybe if you're standing maybe somewhere over here, and you caught the right angle, not really, you'll probably see it, but it's pretty well done. So that's another alternative I'd like to throw out. But it would have to be significantly taller structure. So kind of lower tree versus a taller structure on the Rubies. And that's another thing we want to throw out as a possibility. And all these we have to go take back to Verizon and say, well, they like this, they like that, they don't like this, and negotiate with them to make it work. Because it does shift their coverage area a little bit. They lose a little bit heading toward the bridge, and they don't really gain too much on Route 9 because they're kind of at the same height, basically. But I wanted to throw that out there for your consideration and see if that's something that you're interested in, you want us to investigate further and come back with.
So every proposal you just mentioned requires a variance. It would require height variance and the other one would require.
They all require height variance. Yeah.
And so even though, so we have been waiting to hear back from you on what your plans were regarding going to the zoning board of appeals. We've had several options. I'm presuming that the reason you haven't taken action yet is because you have these other considerations that you wanted to share.
Right, that's correct. And we want this board to focus on what you want us to take to the zoning board. Because we don't want to go back to them
Absolutely.
for height, location, or variance. But if you say, we like Rugies, we don't mind 200 feet because it's buried so far back, then that's what I'd like to hear. If you say, we like the tree at lower height, maybe a pine tree, or we like the other place closer to the intersection, closer to the shell, and maybe a monopole is okay there, not a tree. So those are kind of
Okay.
just some possibilities.
John, you have some comments you'd like to make at this time?
Well, you know, it's a board decision that what's being presented, but I think the Rugi site is probably more consistent with the town's goals for siting. And in fact, depending on, you know, you have to hear some more details about that, but I think it would solve some of the problems that the board is concerned about with regard to the immediate visual impact of the tower. And given the other things that are happening on the Rugies campus, it's probably a more appropriate location for, as Michael described it, an industrial use. I mean, my question might start to shift if you were talking about Rugies to whether the board would consider a tower that might be higher than 200 feet at that location to try to solve some of the coverage problems that are not only in this area but further down Route 9G.
Which would necessitate the light at the top if it goes over 200.
Once you go over 200 feet, you have to put a lamp at the top,
Yeah.
a red light.
Am I correct, John, that the town did take some, would you want to speak to that?
Well, the town board rezoned the Rugies property specifically to permit cell towers within the last 2 years, 3 years? It was just recently, it was quite intentional that was rezoned for this.
Pretty specific.
And I think that the activity that's taken place with regard to the development of that site since the time that the law was amended is consistent with the town's overall goals for that area.
Well, it was, at least the last that I recall, the only location in the town that was zoned light industrial. Is that still,
Yeah.
that's, so,
Yeah.
you know, it is a unique site in that it has that designation. Speaking for myself, I would certainly want to encourage you to look further into the Rugi site because off the top of my head, it seems to offer a number of solutions to some of the thorny questions that have been dogging us about this for some time. I will turn to my colleagues and ask for their,
I agree.
is there anyone that would not want to encourage him to?
I'm a little bit reluctant about the escalation in height because, you know, it's going to be relative to local environs. And the A site that you mentioned, if you just moved a couple hundred feet to the north, now you've got to build another 30 feet taller, and in order to get the same coverage distribution. And I wonder, because from what I've read relative to this, the higher frequencies carry more data but have less reach.
Correct.
And people are using a lot more data. That's putting more of a burden on our towers. And the lower frequencies have better penetration through things like trees. So aren't we on this cycle where we keep building taller and taller to get more and more reach with our data? And one of the justifications for this is the inability to make a phone call, to make a voice phone call. And it, we have so many situations where we build too much parking because people are driving everywhere, and it just encourages more parking. And the same thing with traffic. You widen the roads, you end up with more people driving on them, and then you need wider roads. And so I think we're in the same sort of a cycle here with towers going up all over the place with more and more reach, and we don't seem to, you still can't make a call from Children's Medical Group.
So I can tell you a couple of stories, if we had time, maybe next time, but I've had some
Yeah,
personal
I
family
want to really
emergencies
kind of
where
focus, we've got some other.
we couldn't make calls. And it's very frustrating and potentially dangerous. So my view is always the public safety, being able to make a call in an emergency is what people care about, not necessarily what a tower looks like or where it's located. If they drive by and see a glimpse of it for a second, they don't care. They want to know that if their son or daughter's on the side of the road in the middle of the night, they can get hold of them on the phone. If there's a medical emergency, that the ambulance can have a signal from their home all the way to the hospital. I've even had a situation where my mother fell, I had a medical alert. It's connected by cellular. She fell in her backyard with, the phone, I can't get up. And she couldn't get up. And the signal did not work. Now that tower, by the way, in that picture, is now sitting down the street from my mother's former house. So that tower went in that neighborhood. But it wasn't there. And it didn't work. So,
John?
I'm sure everyone has stories.
John?
So my suggestion is that take a straw poll. Mr. Arthur needs to come away from the meeting
Absolutely.
today with some direction about what direction the board wants to go in. My suggestion to you is to take a straw poll of the board with regard to the site that you're most interested in seeing. And I understand what the concerns that Craig expressed. Another site, you're still going to be able to do some investigation with regard to the visual impact. Some of the same things that were done with regard to the original site proposal. So you can have a crane and, kind of get a look at what it's going to look like. But I think you need to give the applicant some direction about,
Absolutely.
so they can know how to focus their efforts going forward.
And this will, of course, will change their application. They'll be looking at a different application.
And
So-
it's a lot of work to prepare that, and
I understand.
probably tell us better, but it might be the first step as a zoning board to deal with the height, and then come back to you.
Well, I will leave that up to you, but right now.
I don't know, I mean, my suggestion would be, let's sort of get an idea about how this board feels about the height at a certain site before you spend time and effort at the zoning board of appeals. You don't want to have to do that twice, so.
As nice as they are, once is enough. And we want to be able to help you direct your efforts as to where you're going to be the most efficient and productive. So let me start over here. Sharon, we're doing a little straw poll here. What would you like them to look at?
I like the Ruby site best. The height is fine. There is it's not a cell tower, I don't believe, but I think it's a radio tower on Norton Road. It's been there at least 50 years with a red light on top. And every time I go down the road at night, you see that red light up there. I'm like, okay, well, come.
All right.
So I don't mind the light up there. So if you have to have light, that's fine.
Michael?
I prefer the Ruby site.
John?
I prefer the Ruby site, and I would be in favor of a taller tower, which would hopefully remove multi-site towers in the area.
Elise?
I agree with my colleagues, but I do want to just make one clarification, which was when you went over A, B, and C site, you were saying like options are B, you just have like the industrial tower, C, industrial tower but higher. But you said A, shorter, but you said tree again, and because of the homeowner, I just want to clarify that the only way it goes on site is with the tree. Is that right? If that one's on up for debate, right?
Right, at this point, the tree is a site for A, because of the
Required,
homeowner
right.
sensitivity.
Otherwise, that's not going to work because he wants it.
If it wasn't for that, if you wanted to modify there, that's better, because it's so much easier.
But he's not going to allow it anyway, so.
Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, I support the
And that's why when we looked at the property down close to the Shell station, that's so much further away that it doesn't really matter, because it's going another 600 feet or so, so the distance is so much greater from his home.
Right.
Is this homeowner in Rhinebeck or Red Hook?
Right.
I have reservations about the Ruby site. I think it's a little more favorably situated in terms of the the backdrop, but I'm reluctant to recommend exploration of a much higher tower, which I think is the wrong direction.
I like the Ruby site. It really makes sense.
I agree with almost all my colleagues.
Except the difficult one.
Except one of them. So I think the straw poll is pretty self-evident that we would like to encourage you to look at that application. I don't know what this means, John, in terms of continuing public hearing, shot clocks, all of the other associated issues with this evening.
I think one of the first things I said to you is I appreciated your patience. We have some homework now. We have due diligence, leasing, Verizon RF still has to sign off on this. My suggestion would be to adjourn the public hearing to December. We've already adjourned the shot clock, continue it until December. We'll come back in December, hopefully with more of an update. As you've seen, we've been very workable as far as extending the shot clock.
Yes, and we appreciate it.
We'll continue to do that as long as we're moving in the right direction. We appreciate your clear direction this evening. That helps us. And when we're at the point where we feel it's right to go to the zoning board, we'll go to the zoning board. But we'll continue or adjourn until we get this in the right spot.
Okay, it is a public hearing.
I only have one wrinkle to, Robert, I think that given what has to happen here, my suggestion is that the public hearing be adjourned to a indeterminate time at the moment. I don't think, I think when the public comments on this again, there should be a plan, a plan certain. And we can reconvene the public hearing once we figured out whether, this Ruby site is going to be what you're going to propose.
My only concern with that is we have to resend the notices.
Yeah, that's okay.
They were somewhat significant. It was a cost to us to do that. And if we do add Rugies as an alternative, we'd have to send those notices as well.
Yeah, I understand.
I wouldn't be opposed, I haven't asked John yet, but if we wanted to adjourn both the shot clock and the public hearing to January, so we have a little bit more time.
I think at a minimum, we have to do that, because we can't, it's a waste of everybody's time for people to come in and be commenting on something that might not be the plan.
Yeah, no, and we haven't had a tremendous amount of public comment luckily, but
Yep.
I think we'd be amenable to adjourn the shot clock with the public hearing in January.
Why don't we do that?
Give us time to work through the holidays.
That would be January.
Will you send me an email to confirm
Yes.
that?
That would be January 16th.
January 16th.
I'm going to do the exercise of asking if there's anybody here from the public who wishes to comment, because we do have a public hearing open at the moment. And then we'll take it to a motion.
So I thought they could keep those.
I am inclined to agree with the Ruby's location, especially if it means one giant tower instead of 7 or 8 shorter towers that have more potential for being in the line of sight. But it does seem to me that at 200 feet, where all these places it's being proposed, it's not the people driving by or walking by that are going to see this, because you're not driving by everything up. It's the people who, with a view, either up, and I don't know, I'm not great with this, but up from the Hudson, across the Hudson, Burger Hill, etc. So as you're considering this, I would encourage you to take into consideration not just the view from 9G, but the view from the surrounding view shed.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, may I have a motion to continue this public hearing?
So moved.
Till January 16th. And again, I'm pointing out that there will be 2 meetings, actually, only 2 meetings in January, are both Tuesdays as opposed to Mondays, so just a heads up on that. May I have that motion?
Yeah.
And then make it second?
Delete second, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
From a technical perspective, I think we do need a letter, after these.
Yeah, I'll work out.
Okay, the last public hearing scheduled for this evening is along with 492 African Road, site plan approval, special use permit, and wetlands permit for Condominium Concession here to just give us a brief update of where we are. You're going to go home, all right, well, happy Thanksgiving to you.
And
Thanksgiving.
Good evening, Seth Stickle with Mark Kaminsky, PE LSPC, here this evening to represent Hudson Valley Rhinebeck LLC. At this time, we just wanted to come back before the board and, oh, that's my stuff.
Oh, that's your stuff? Yeah, I'm sorry. Don't know what it was.
No worries. And let the board know that we have responded to and provided all of our responses to the town engineer at this time. We have also responded to the town planner's comments and suggestions of an updated EAF. All that material has been provided. It is available for the board and the public. We are also advancing with WSP for what is the water and sewer application review. They have begun and submitted the initial applications to the review agencies. So at this time, we, just due to, I think, timing and schedules and such, we haven't received a proper response back from the town engineer suggesting that there is satisfaction of all those comments. So we still need that piece of information before we can really move forward with this. And also just a recognition from the town engineer that the deferred approvals for the water and sewer will come from the other review agencies. I do believe that was stated in one of his last letters, so I believe that is also public information. And then if there are any comments on the EAF, Jim, and preparation of what will be a part 3, I'd love to support you in that effort. So right now, that is all the information that we have to report back to the board. We hope to be able to continue the conversation further once we receive that formal response back.
We need to get the EAF, I appreciate that. I think the board has given me the okay to continue working on the part 2 and part 3. We will have a long form to fill out and complete at a public hearing in the future. There's a lot of work involved in that. I do involve John Grant Lyons in the type 1 secret reviews. So I am working on pulling that together. I'll continue doing so, and the updated EAF will help me with some of the numbers on that, just because there were some tweaks between this one and what we had in the last version. I don't think there's anything substantial, but that has some changes. So we'll use that information, and yeah, that's really all I have this time. I think.
Questions, comments from planning board members? Public?
Just some points of clarification. That was all really helpful, so thank you for that, sharing that. What happens when you consider the application complete? Does that open 30-day comment period? And then the secret declaration occurs? Okay, if you can just kind of walk me quickly through the steps so that we are ready. Need to be.
I believe the 30-day comment period has been open for years.
But not with a complete application.
Well, the application was complete. The planning board accepted it as complete when they accepted this for review initially. When we do a procedural resolution, that's accepting the application as complete. Since that was accepted, the planning board has asked for a lot more information, updates, revisions, changes, and additional information. But that has been part of the continuing public hearing that started when we did the procedural resolution, which is where the board accepted the application as complete.
Can you tell me what date that was? Because that's totally not our understanding.
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, no, we've been under the impression that what we were waiting for was the town to agree, the planning board to agree that all of the documentation had been submitted, and that then you could make a judgment on the final, on what had been submitted
Yeah, I mean, that's where we are. That's what, you know, Seth is asking for, the engineers, you know, essentially like sign off on the remaining comments, that they're satisfied with the information that's been submitted. I am pulling together the EAF. Yes, that information is what the board would review and determine what's going on. So it's, I guess, a continual evolution of the material as the public hearing has evolved.
So it's not just the town engineer that's been reviewing and commenting, you all have been reviewing and commenting
Only in a
directly?
public meeting.
Okay, well, I haven't heard any comments from you guys to Rockledge, other than, is it ready yet?
Any comments that we would make to Rockledge would be made in a public meeting.
Okay,
We would not independently.
that's what I thought. But then what is this back and forth that you're talking about?
Because of requests for additional information and requests from our engineering consultant to provide other detailed information. So I think it's fair to categorize the back and forth, if you will, as between the applicant's team and our consultant reviewers, which in this case is the engineering consultants.
Right, and that's
Which we've
part.
seen. We have seen all the things back and forth
And
specifically
there's
with the
still, in my
engineer.
opinion, you know, there's one last round that's been going on with the applicant's team asking, have we given you everything you need? And the consulting engineer, CPL, confirming that they have or haven't. And then there have been some places along the timeline where the applicant has made some adjustments to his application that's then required it to go back to the consultants for additional review because things have changed on the plan. So
I think there's another element here also, maybe what you're speaking to, is that the state considers a complete application to include a determination of significance under seeker. And we haven't done that yet. So in essence, from that standpoint, we don't have a complete application yet.
Okay.
And a determination is either a positive or a negative.
Yep,
And we have not done that yet.
right.
and have not undertaken
No.
the seeker primarily because of the various changes and alterations. We're not going to, and here, put Jim or anyone else through the process of
Right.
preparing the paperwork and us for a seeker determination until we know what we're looking for.
That's our understanding as well, that the point at which you consider you have everything on which to base your secret determination
Correct.
will kick off a chain of events.
Correct.
And it's that sequence that I am looking for clarification on.
Well, it's my understanding, and Michael and Jim will help me here, when we believe that we are very close to a sign-off from CPL, which is what we've been waiting for. And I myself did speak to CPL this week. I know that Christian Moore, who is the engineer, has been working most closely with Seth and Mark on this, is on a Thanksgiving break and is going to be back Monday of next week. And the intent is that he will then be in touch with the applicant and confirm that he has everything he needs and is ready to issue a final statement. At which point we will be in a position to begin the secret process.
So does that have to, do you wait for the December planning board meeting to say we now have everything and we're going ahead, or is this just whenever Christian says, yeah, I agree, then you guys start?
Well, we will open the public hearing in December
Uh-huh.
and present that information then. I'm not going to send out a press release and say we have it. We'll take it up as a matter of course at the planning board. Jim will obviously start working with John Lyons and others once we have all the information to begin drafting the information we're going to look at. And then in the past, we have set aside when we're ready to go through the secret process, we have scheduled it on our planning board agendas so that we build into the process sufficient time for the planning board to go through the document carefully. What am I?
No, that's right. So essentially what I do is I'll be drafting, based on the information with CPL's help and John Lyons, another document that essentially addresses, based on all the information we have, the answers to the questions in the secret long form. So the planning board has that information. So I will draft all that. It's probably going to be the better part of 20 plus pages by the time it's all said and done. The planning board will be able to review that, and then we will schedule the public hearing when we'll start going through that. And it could take a couple hours in a meeting, it could take a couple hours in a couple meetings. It depends on how quickly we get through the information, and if as we go through, we find that there's additional questions we need to look into. It's a process. So that process will be announced in one of our meetings in terms of when we're going to do that. But it's going to take a little time to pull that document.
We'll continue the public hearing this evening until December 18th. And it's my fervent holiday wish that we will be able to come to the December 18th meeting and tell you that we're ready to go to take the next steps. Michael, am I missing anything?
No, I think that we left it when we did previously. Jim was going to provide us information in part 2 and part 3 of the secret law and determinations.
And we will, as we have in the past, go through the secret law form, point by point, in public, step by step, question by question, individual members of the planning board. This is the chance that you were sort of referring to earlier when you say we haven't commented. I treat public hearings as a hearing, not a talking, for me. And so I think when we get to that point in the long form, that is when individual members of the planning board will have ample opportunity to say, well, I think this is no impact, no, I think this is a moderate impact, I think this is, that's when the real conversation will take place among the members of the planning board. And at the end of that, then a determination will be made as to significance, positive or negative. After we've worked our way, and as Jim says, given the interest in this project and the significance of this project when it rises to this level, we can assure you that we will take our time and do it carefully.
So, once you make your declaration, assuming if it's a positive declaration, then in either situation, is there a public comment period after you issue your declaration? If it's a negative, it ends. That's it.
And that ends the secret process.
That ends the secret process. Does it close the public hearing?
No, you still have to go through site plan, special use permit and wetlands, I think is So there are essentially two approvals the board has to do. They have to do secret approval, and then they have to do, site plan, special use permit, and wetlands permit approvals.
Isn't there also a subdivision?
Yes, well, the other piece is that there's a step still to take place. I believe there's no additional changes to number of rooms in the different buildings.
No, and you are correct, it will require a variance application. So
and
at some point during this process, we will also need a referral from this board to the zoning board of appeals, where we will go forward with that
Zoning Board
process.
of Appeals understands that that request will be coming to them, but cannot act on that until the planning board makes its secret determination. As convoluted as it sounds, that's the way. So that step will have to occur somewhere in that timeline as well. And as we know, as we expressed earlier, this calendar for the Zoning Board of Appeals will extend this application by months while they work through that.
Thank you very much. This is hugely, have a happy Thanksgiving.
No, I don't have
Okay, going once, going twice. All right, everybody good? I don't see anything else on my agenda.
Do you want to continue?
Yes, we do, and I'm hopefully, as I said, looking for an early holiday present and continuing it to December 18th. May I have that motion?
So moved.
There's motions all over, pick one, I don't care. And second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Now, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
All those in favor?
So my only comment tonight is